Someday I'm going to want to borrow that. A lot, he said. I'll bet, Abigail said, taking his hand as they watched the page turn down. Alexander returned to the wizard's den, finding the two books still reading with near exclusive focus. Peter smiled at him. You'll probably have to touch them on the shoulder to get their attention, he said. He tapped Maggie. She blinked a few times before her eyes returned to the present. Come on, I want to show you something, he said. You too, Cassandra. They reluctantly pulled their attention from the tomes before them. He led them out and showed them the book being copied. Remarkable, Michael whispered. Indeed, Cassandra agreed. This is the spell book that will help you with Tahari, Alexander said. At least according to the librarian. Lord Rishi, I am at your service, the librarian said, appearing nearby at the mention of his name. Apparently, he can help you find any book you want. This place is a wonder, Maggie said. I'll be sad to leave it. Speaking of which, do you have a spell that creates silence? Alexander asked. Yes, it's a common spell, often effective against other spellcasters, provided they don't know a counter that relies on hand gestures alone. Good. How long does it last? The duration varies with intent, Maggie said. A few moments, up to 30 minutes or so. Why? Because that's how we're going to get out of here, Alexander said. Those creatures rely on sound to see. If they can't hear us, we'll be invisible. Ah, Jack said, heading back into the wizard's den instead. I'd like to take a look at the back wall while we wait for your book to finish writing itself, Alexander said. I could use your help, both of you. Certainly, Maggie said, following Alexander to the wall with the hidden compartments containing Malachi's phylactery. The sovereigns tell me that the map table can't see the driver, Alexander said silently to Chloe while they walked. Oh, thank the Maker. I was so worried. They reached the back wall of the library and found that the last row of shelves ran the length of the entire wall, floor to ceiling. Alexander scanned for any hint of magic past the ubiquitous aura emanating from the library itself, and found nothing. Somewhere along this wall is a hidden and trapped compartment, but I can't see it. Magda frowned for a moment, as if considering which of the spells in her repertoire she needed. Then she began to mutter under her breath. Her colours flared and her frown deepened. She cast another spell, shaking her head. I can't see it either, she said. Librarian, Alexander said. Lord Rishi, I am at your service, he said, materializing before him. Can you show me where the hidden compartment is in this wall? Of course, he said, walking to a section near the right corner and pointing to a book on the bottom shelf. Push this book in against the back of the shelf and the compartment will open. From several paces away, Alexander sent his sight to the book and examined it closely, drifting behind it and finding a section of the shelf that protruded, just about the same size as the book's spine. A faint, almost imperceptible aura of magic confirmed the librarian's guidance. Malachi says the trap on the compartment will kill me if I try to open it. Any suggestions? Perhaps action at a distance is called for, Cassandra said. And adequate shielding, Magda added. I'm willing to try if you are, Alexander said. If we withdraw to the central path, that should provide enough distance to protect us. Once there, Magda cast a number of spells in preparation, the first creating a wall of magical force that lined the opposite shelf, the second erecting a bubble of magical energy surrounding the wall, and the third creating a bubble around the section of wall in question. I'm ready, she said, offering her hand to Cassandra. Cassandra took it, casting a spell that would limit their power, allowing her spell to penetrate Magda's shields. Her next spell took a bit longer to cast. With a gesture, the book pressed in against the controller. A section of the bookshelf along the back wall swung outward into the path between it and the next row of shelves. A moment later, the wall behind it vanished in a 3-foot by 3-foot section, opening into a cubbyhole containing an ornately made bottle. A moment after that, a gout of blackness erupted from within the cubbyhole, jetting outward and splattering into the shield wall opposite it, spraying in every direction like water, before quickly coalescing into a ball of black liquid. It hesitated for just a second, then launched toward them in a stream of inky darkness. Alexander focused his will on luminescence and released a burst of light so bright and so pure that the darkness evaporated with a shriek that made Alexander's skin crawl, the last traces of it nearly reaching them before vanishing into the ether. Titan was standing beside him, just outside of Magda's shield, when he let his light fail. Yeah, that would have probably killed me, Alexander said. Malachi's almost more trouble than his will. And yet, he may have provided you with the means to flee Isabel,
Yeah?
Magda said, dispelling their shields with a gesture. Abigail and Jack came running up. What happened?
Is that
Jack
what's
asked.
done?
We just
The
triggered
middle
a
one?
trap, Alexander said,
Is it what?
heading toward the hidden
The
compartment.
middle one?
Uh-huh.
He stopped
Are they going
before
to
it,
reach that?
examining the space
I don't
and the
know.
bottle with all of his sight, searching for any hints that he'd missed some other defense that
This?
time.
Are they going to cement that?
Do you really
Middle?
think-
Oh, no, that's median, I think. I don't think they will.
I can hope, Alexander said, cautiously touching it with a single
I don't
finger.
think they will.
Satisfied that the defenses had been expended, he lifted the bottle from its resting place. It had an expansive aura with a hint of darkness swirling in its potent colors. It certainly looks powerful. One more weapon can't hurt, the Khan said. Alexander nodded. Let's go have a look at that book. Chapter 29. It was nearly complete. Only a few dozen pages remaining to be duplicated. He turned back to the map table, laying his hand on the panel, and thinking of the door to the library. The entry hall just outside was filled with 9 of the creatures, all standing stock still, as if they were listening for intruders. More filled the staircase and the single corridor leading into the darkness through the wall opposite the stairway entrance. I have to get into that room, Alexander said, pointing to the sealed archway directly across from the library door. Then what? Abigail asked. It looks like suicide that way. Once I have control over the keep, I'll be able to restrict their movement, he said. Maybe seal up the staircase and give us a fighting chance to get out of here. I'm all for that, she said. When the book had been completely duplicated, both books closed with their back covers facing up. Alexander handed the copy to Magda and returned the original to the shelf. In time, I hope to duplicate this entire library, he said. But for right now, this will have to do. Magda and Cassandra both noddedly agreed. Anja's voice filtered out of the wizard's den. Where are we? In the library, Alexander said. How are you feeling? My leg hurts. Where are those creatures? I want another stab at them. Just outside the door, but I'm afraid you'll have to sit this one out, Alexander said. I'm going to slip past them quietly if I can. Is that wise, Lord Bishop? Kitana asked. Beats trying to fight them. Magda, I need you to spell me with silence for a few minutes. Of course. All right, everyone inside, he said, motioning to the wizard's den. Magda cast her spell from just inside the door. It was a strange sensation, sudden, absolute silence. He clapped his hands, but there was nothing except the feeling of his hands coming together. He nodded to her before closing the door and stepping through the magical membrane that served as the library's door, a room filled with horror. The creatures closest to him twitched, seeming to react to the sudden absence of sound surrounding Alexander. He stepped to the side slowly, cautiously avoiding contact, threading his way past Malachi's unnatural creations on his way to the door on the opposite wall of the room. It was a nerve-wracking, painstaking few minutes. Each step placed cautiously, each movement calculated to avoid contact. When he got near one of the creatures, it would react to the sudden absence of sound by cocking its head, distress flaring in its colors, as if it had gone suddenly blind. He reached the door, placing his hand on the smooth surface, and pushing through into a small room overlooking a much larger torrent-shaped space, with a silvery sphere occupying the exact center. A low wall like the railing of a balcony marked the opposite side of the small room with a simple pedestal topped by a large black stone positioned in the exact center. Alexander placed his hand on the stone. A moment passed, then another. Then the stasis field vanished like a soap bubble popping. The large, narrow, diamond-shaped power crystal was there in the center of the toroid, spinning as if it had never stopped. Alexander felt like something inside him was awakening, slowly coming back to life. Focusing on that feeling caused an image of the Rishi keep to spring to his mind, fully formed and perfect in every detail. His attention was drawn to the damaged observation platform and tower. It looked like it was healed, slowly regenerating the stone to replace the portions that had been blasted away by flame. He smiled to himself, shifting his focus to the staircase that ran through the core of the lower levels. Each archway leading to each level could be sealed with a foot of magical stone with a fork. He closed them all, save for the 7th level, before looking into the 4th level where they first encountered the insect creatures. The blockage in the corridor created by Magda's spell had been breached. The first several feet had been reduced to gravel, but the last few feet were eaten through by acid. He tested the silence surrounding him, and finding that the spell was still in place, he pushed through the door into the entry hall and carefully made his way to the stairwell, sealing off the 7th level with a fork. Then he opened the door of his wizard's den and quickly stepped inside. Magda dismissed her silent spell with a word and a gesture. "The keep is alive and under my control," he said. "I've sealed the lower levels, so we just have the creatures in the stairwell to deal with. And we do. It got out," Jackson. "Looks that way. I'll know more after I get a chance to look around." "So, how many of those things are out there?" Andrew asked. "A lot," Alexander said with a shrug. "The staircase is filled with them." "So, do we sneak through or do we fight?" Abigail said. "I think we fight," Alexander said. "I don't want to run into that demon with a bunch of these creatures behind us." "Fair enough." Okay. "What's your plan?" "I thought I'd stand in the doorway and cut them to pieces," Alexander said. "Perhaps fine," Sandra said. "It seemed to work before." "I'd rather not use another arrow if I can help it," Abigail said. "And you needn't," Sandra said. "We can throw fire." Magda nodded agreement. They spent a few moments organizing their attack. Once everything was in place, Alexander to the left of the door with the thin leg in hand, Jatan to the right of the door, Cassandra and Magda at the door, side by side. Alexander willed it open. Creatures tumbled through. Alexander and Jatan slipped into them quickly, scattering black carnage under the floor of the wizard's den. Magda released her spell, blasting the creatures back into the stairwell with a burst of magical energy that opened a space before the door. Cassandra fired a gout of liquid fire into that space. It splattered on impact, rebounding against the creatures closest to the door, spraying orange-hot, sticky flame in every direction. The jet of fiery liquid streamed forth unrelenting, filling the world just outside their door with hot death, then stopped as abruptly as it had begun. Alexander closed the door. "It might be a few minutes," Magda said. Alexander picked up part of a dead creature that had fallen into the wizard's den and carried the carnage to the balcony where he casually tossed it over into the endless fog. Within a few minutes, he and his friends had cast the remnants of all the dead creatures away.
The what?
He waited for about 10 minutes before opening the door.
There?
The stench and heat hit him first. What lay beyond was haunting and horrific. Hundreds of the creatures had been killed by fire and the superheated smoke that it created. They walked cautiously, taking their way past charred husks that looked as unnatural in death as they had in life. It wasn't until they reached level 4 that they encountered the first living creature, though it was injured severely enough that it was an effortless kill.